afternoon, everybody. Welcome to this exciting webinar where we are going to discuss about the challenges and opportunities for students' placements in the context of what we're experiencing in the country today. We have an exciting lineup of speakers with us this afternoon. We have, in fact, two former chairmen of NASSCOM, Dr. Ganesh Natarajan and Raman Roy. And of course, we have Dev Bhattacharya. Ganesh Natarajan was the CEO of two successful companies, Aptech and Zensar, and later he founded 5F World Private Limited, and he's the chairman of 5F World Private Limited. Raman Roy is a founder of several entrepreneurial companies. He had founded SpectraMind, which was one of the first companies in the BPO business in India, which made a spectacular success and was bought by Wipro. He's also credited to have created 35,000 jobs in the country. He has founded this company, Quattro BPO, and he is the chairman and managing director of this company. Dev Bhattacharya is the executive president in Aditya Birla Group, and he has straddled multiple businesses within Birla Group. So it's going to be very interesting to listen to three stalwarts amongst us today, talking about their perspectives and sharing their thoughts on what is going on in the industry, and particularly how this is likely to impact the students, the placement opportunities, and of course, the job scenario in the country. As all of us are aware, as on date, more than 20 lakh people have been infected because of coronavirus across the world. Almost 1.3 lakh people are dead. And of course, the vaccine is yet to be found, and it is likely to be another 12 months before the vaccine could be produced. In the meantime, world over, there is significant concern about the business, about the economy, and the IMF has revised its GDP growth estimate to 3%, which is probably the worst ever after the Great Depression. India, of course, IMF says, will remain the fastest growing major economy in 2020, but one must remember that the COVID onslaught is only at an early stage in India. We have had other problems even before COVID, and therefore it is going to be a humongous problem for us to deal with the economic scenario. And of course, this will have a lot of effect in terms of how businesses will be conducted and how the job scenario is going to play out. To begin with, I'm going to request Dr. Ganesh Natarajan to talk about what he thinks are going to be important from the perspective of job creation, particularly focusing on the IT industry. Over to you, Dr. Ganesh Natarajan.
Sure, thank you, Uma, and welcome Raman and Dev Bhattacharya. Just to give a context, I think as all of you know, if you look at the history of this country, many of us joined manufacturing companies when we graduated, and clearly there was an opportunity for us to build our careers in manufacturing. I myself started as a shop floor industrial engineer, then moved on to setting up my own company, and then after that did my PhD in IIT Bombay. At the same time became CEO of a company called Aptech, which many of you must know. After that, spent 15 years running Zensar Technologies. In the process, I think many of us, including my very good friend Raman here, built companies, also collaborated to be part of something called NASSCOM. NASSCOM, of course, is the kind of governing association for the $160 billion technology industry that we are very proud of today. And it's been a pleasure for us watching so many young engineers and non-engineers, people with nowadays with art skills, animation skills, come in and build very successful careers in our industry. And I'm sure that will go on. Because even in the worst of times, as all of you know, COVID has devastated many industries. Manufacturing is completely shut down in many parts of the world, including in India, and slowly opening, as you know, after the lockdown got partially lifted. But if you look at the technology sector, I mean, if you look at three large companies which have actually declared their results, TCS, Infosys, and Wipro, and you'll find that most of them have talked about, in spite of COVID, 85 to 90% capacity is utilized, which really means that we are really leveraging the capability, the innovation of our wonderful young engineers. I mean, we have almost 44 lakh people employed in the industry today. And all of them are very, very flexible, very innovative. Literally within 48 hours, so many tens of thousands and lakhs of computers were actually shifted from office buildings in Bangalore and Pune and Mumbai and to move to homes. And there was hardly a hiccup in terms of the actual. So I think that is the real strength of our industry. Whatever you have learned, it could be mechanical engineering, it could be chemical engineering, it could be art, science, commerce, that doesn't matter. But the attitude always brought to the table in our industry has really made it what it is. When I started my career, or in fact, when I first joined NASCOM, we were hardly maybe less than a $2 billion industry, but today 160 billion. And the growth has been unprecedented. And I think all the credit goes to young people. So what is the panic about? The panic is that the traditional jobs that people were being trained for in the industry, I mean, many people were trained in programming, for instance, and they said that, look, a programmer's career is what I should be. And the traditional path to success in technology used to be you join as a programmer, becoming a programmer analyst, maybe a team leader, a program manager, and then into a leadership. Today, what's happening is that some traditional jobs, okay, and this has nothing to do with COVID, it's actually to do with nature of digital transformation. Some traditional jobs like programming, like testing, like application support, infrastructure support, that is being eliminated because of the very quick sweep of automation, artificial intelligence, robotics, and so many other areas, because of which we're finding that the jobs that are being created are very, very new. But if you look at the jobs being created today, and I'm sure Raman will talk about it in the context of IT and BPO, and they will talk about it in the context of manufacturing, retail, new sectors, all of which he is very comfortable. But just to focus on technology, I think the real opportunities are coming in the new wave of digital. All of you would have heard of digital transformation. But to put it very simply, digital is nothing but a set of core technologies, which is mobility, cloud, social media, analytics, and big data. It's some what we call extended technologies, like you must have heard of Internet of Things, which means sensors and actuators on the shop floor of companies, etc., etc. Areas like mixed reality, which is augmented reality and virtual reality. Then you have machine learning, deep learning, artificial intelligence. Then you must have heard of blockchain and what we call digital ledger. So there's a whole bunch of new technologies coming in. Then, of course, something we would not have predicted in the past, people with amazing creative skills, music skills, sound skills, visualization skills are getting fantastic jobs in our industry because the whole world is looking for what they call better UX UI, which is user experience, user interface. And finally, more technical areas like cybersecurity, etc., are becoming important. So what it really means is, it doesn't matter what your branch is. As I said, it doesn't matter what your degree is. But if you have the ability to understand how businesses are being transformed through digital technology, and we have a simple model in our own group, 5F, which says that people who are successful in digital, the future of the world, will be not only good in some technologies, they will also understand how business process, a manufacturing process, a sales process, a retail process are being transformed on the basis of technology. People will also understand how cultures are shifting. So it's not just the skills of writing good programming, but it's the skills of working with your peer group in a company, working with a small team of people in an entrepreneurial startup like Raman has done many times in the past, and actually giving them the excitement of creating something new, of being innovative. If I get time later, I'll talk a little bit more about the innovative spirit that you must develop. But suffice it to say at this point of time that this combination of robust digital technology skills this understanding of business processes, understanding of people and soft skills, how to be part of a team, how to deal with people is becoming very important. Thanks to this COVID or coronavirus crisis, we're also finding that some new skills are being important because people are working from home and not in offices. So people will have to collaborate using technology like the one we are using today, Zoom or Microsoft Teams, Google Hangouts, etc., etc. People will also have to collaborate with their bosses. Maybe their boss is sitting somewhere in Chennai while you're in Pune, but how do you really respond and communicate with them? So a whole host of new skills are becoming important. The good news I want to share with you is jobs are going to be there in abundance. It is not that jobs are not there. It's just that the jobs you may have been trained for or thought about maybe 3 years ago may be very different from the jobs that are available today. So all that is required is keep your ear to the ground, keep your eyes open and see that, look, what is happening today? What's the world doing? And many of you are training and placement officers in this group who are obviously getting students. Just tell them to be continuous learners. I think the most successful people in the world today are people who never stop learning, who are always abreast of what is the changes in the world. And once you do that, and your training in your institute has been very, very good in terms of the discipline of engineering, any new technology, any new change, you will be able to master it. So all the best to you. I'm still on the call, and I think we can interact more as we go. Thank you, Ma. Back to you.
Thank you, Dr. Natarajan, for providing that very bullish and optimistic view and the opportunities that you have laid out in the IT industry. We will come back to you with some more questions, but at this juncture, I would like to just let everybody know that we have more than 200 participants in this event today, in fact, 216 as I speak. And if any of you have questions, please start putting down your questions or your comments in the chat window. Mridula Sankhyan, who is the CEO of GDT, she's also part of this event. She will actually pick up some of the questions as we go along and will try to answer or pass it around to one of the panelists to answer later in the later part of the session. Okay, so now moving on to the next speaker, that will be Dev Bhattacharya. As I mentioned earlier, Dev has straddled multiple businesses within Birla Group. So I'm going to request now Dev to talk about the impact of COVID, particularly in the context of job scenario in the manufacturing, financial services sector, or telecom and other startup scenarios that you're very, very familiar with. Over to you, Dev, for your views.
Thank you, Uma. Can you hear me?
Yes, very, very
okay,
clearly.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you. Firstly, a little bit of an apology because I think I joined a couple of minutes after you started the first time. But nevertheless, I'll give you first a little perspective about how we see it from the Aditya Birla Group, which is a mix of 15 different businesses across the world, and more so in terms of how do we see it in India. And I'll try and give you, very simple home truths rather than taking you around in circles. The larger companies, as I can see, as far as the job scene is concerned, the larger companies will stay the course, at least definitely for this year. The commitments that they have made, by and large, 99% or at least 90% companies will honor that commitment. The smaller companies, that is the medium-sized companies or medium and small companies, will have to and are seen to be rescinding from or reneging from their commitments. And that's where I think a lot of institutions, other than the top institutions, are facing this problem of having to place people or find alternate places for students to engage in terms of internship programs, etc. But this problem might accentuate next year because I think there could be a fairly large reduction in intake requirements, considering that the uncertainty in the environment as far as stability of organizations going forward is still in question. And there are many reasons why I don't think we need to go into all of that detail right now. I will stay the course on what I think, is the opportunity. And Ganesh mentioned some of this earlier, and Uma also did. That, in all this, there is always a silver lining. You have to look for it. And if you just go the traditional course and keep hunting for the same job, same businesses, same direction, you might find that you're, hitting your head against the wall. So therefore, what is it that is happening, and what are the changes that are occurring, and how do you address this new world, as it were? And this new world might actually stay for the next 2 years, and therefore, it might actually change the nature, shape, and the way things are, understood and conducted in the world of business. I'll give you a small example. For instance, we are thinking now that how do you sort of readdress this attendance and working together in the office, considering that at any point in time you might have this outbreak in your office, and you might have to seal the whole office and send everybody home or in quarantine, and some people into hospitals that they don't really want to go to, and all these complications can arise. And you can have an office of 500 people. What do you do with their families? What is the real answer here? Is that a real solution? What do you do? And then the other question that is cropping up is that, some of this work can be done from home. It's not a huge problem. And if we have to combine all these thinking together, and then of course the issue of having people who are 55 and above not going to office as often, here comes a very interesting solution. And this I'm giving you as probably a thing that's sort of churning in my mind. What if people attend office for varying periods, between 3 to 4 days at a stretch in the office, and then don't come to work for 2 weeks or 3 weeks? And then you have this, people doing this in rosters, so that if somebody falls ill by chance, a certain set of people who might have got affected and not the whole office. You might, of course, have to disinfect the office, but all the people have not come together all the time. And then the problem can be tackled in a more organized form. So what is the solution? The solution is probably mathematical modeling, very interestingly. Now, who's going to be able to work on something like this and try to come up with solutions for workplaces? Secondly, why do people need large plush offices to work in? You probably need to go to work and to office only when you need to, and you probably need to meet. You probably need to do a little bit of documentation, etc. Maybe some specific stuff. I'm talking about people going to offices, not the factory. That's a different issue. So there are new solutions that will emerge as a result of this current situation, and people can start working on these issues. Okay, so I expect, and then I was talking to my human resources that, we have this situation where, you may not be able to have all the, the recruitments and the placements and youngsters coming in for, their stints between their courses. So what do you do? What opportunities can you give to these youngsters? And the fact that, the next year could be even worse than this year. What do you do? What really is the answer? So here is another thought that I'm getting, and don't have to take it. I'm just giving you a thought. And don't be hesitant to, first of all, look at the option of offering your services free. And as an institution, give the offer to organizations that, okay, I'll put together a team of 4 people supervised by a faculty member, and we will give you an opportunity to design projects and give it to us, and we'll execute it for you for the next 3 to 6 months. Give us our costs. If you like what you really see, what's coming from us, then maybe you might select 1 or 2 bright students that you think really, is suitable for you. So that's an option. If you come to a position where you may not be able to get jobs, is this an option that you might like to explore? So that's another thing. The second thing is, I can see a sort of proliferation of opportunities coming up in the digital space. And I'll give you some examples in the digital space. So, a lot of these celebrities and all, they want their social media presence to be more, more with it, more stylish. And they're saying, things like, I'm looking so flat and my Instagram is not so good. And there are kids who are really good at this stuff, okay, designing Instagram pages. And this is an opportunity for people to actually monetize their skills. Have any of you got this capability? Ever thought of this? Then look at aggregation opportunities for, clusters of manufacturers or service providers who they are in different parts of the country. And I was just thinking of some of these uh, very exquisite handcraft manufacturers in different parts of the country, as well as furniture manufacturers, etc. Here is a chance for aggregating and being an digital aggregator for, say, Amazon or something. So there have been some people in the industry, in this e-commerce industry, but there is an opportunity for a lot more in your area where you can think like this. So things like this, and the other sectors where I see there is a big opportunity that is cropping up is in the agri sector, agri-tech, agri-logistics. So a whole host of opportunities will come up, and this is a sector that will thrive even for the next 2 years. Well, everything else is falling all over the place. This is a sector that will really thrive. Do you have the capability of participating in this? Do you think there is an opportunity here? So these are some of the stuff that sort of occurred to me while I was thinking about what I could probably speak to you. And there are many other things that keep coming to my mind, and I'll probably try and articulate that as we go along. But this is something that I thought I'll tell you for now. Thank you. Over.
Thank you, Dave. That was interesting to hear from you. What are the new avenues and new ways of engaging young people by the industry could be? So we'll come back to this in a little while. Raman, if I could request you to give your comments on what Dave and Ganesh had to say about the opportunities in the IT industry and your own perspectives on the COVID and the Indian economy. And thereafter, would like to request you to talk about the BPM sector that you're so familiar with. There was a time when we were all very, very concerned about the attrition rate. And of course, in the recent past, there has been a lot of automation initiatives that the BPM sector has put in place in order to bring about better optimization, better productivity. But in the context of COVID, what do you see as the possibility? Are we likely to hire more people at the junior levels? Or are we likely to see multi-skilling becoming more and more important? It is going to be very interesting to hear you share your thoughts on this subject, Raman. Over to you, please.
Thank you very much, Uma, and thank you, Ganesh and Dev. So, it is a new world that we are going into. The world before COVID and after COVID will become new terms in which we will speak. And I speak to a host of people who have hundreds of students sitting with you, and hopefully they are already talking about it in some of the case studies and things that you're doing. But the world that we came from was very, 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 very different from where we are going into. And I'm not talking about the lockdown. The lockdown is, yes, here and now, but the point I'm making is that the world we will go into from here will be very different because there are new learnings. There will be good things and there will be bad things. And, I would not put my neck out to say that I know all the good things or I know all the bad things, because those things are still evolving. We are still learning where it is. So Ganesh spoke a little about the job opportunities on the IT side and what it is. And let me drill it down to the business process management sector. We directly today employ 1.5 million people, and we employ about 6 million people indirectly. We do the back office work, a lot of work that used to traditionally, if you go back 30 years ago, when we started doing this out of India, all of the work was done at the location by people sitting there. And if anything, as the business grew, that work grew. And Uma just brought out the aspect of automation. with automation, some of the growth of that work got taken by automation. I mean, if you go back to 10 years ago, 15 years ago, where people didn't have the fancy mobile phones that you and I have, where we could check our balances on the bank account, where we could check whether a particular check got paid or not, people would call their card companies to ensure that the check payment had come in. And those are the earlier calls that we migrated into India. So the call would typically be, have you received my payment? Because if by a particular date the payment was not received, you'd get charged a penalty, and that penalty was approximately 30% per annum as an interest rate if you calculate it. So people, it was a substantial amount. So people wanted to know that the check has been received. And that was a large proportion of calls that we migrated into India, and we trained the staff in India to be able to do those calls. Machines came in, SMSs came in, and today you get automatic confirmation that your payment has been received by a message, by an email, by various aspects of technology. So some of those jobs went away. If you make a call to some of the airlines, and it is, well, airlines nowadays is a bad word, unfortunately, they're all closed. But pre-COVID, the BC before COVID and the AC after COVID, if you made a call and you had only to inquire what time the flight was landing, whether it was on time, if you wanted to make a minor change in your itinerary, just change the flight or the timing of the flight, you could run into a machine and the machine would be able to make those changes for you, and that took away the job from human beings. So in the last 30 years, we've lived the criteria where we brought in a whole lot of mundane jobs. A lot of those jobs got converted by technology, and what was left behind was the high-end jobs. And if you look at the industry today, which is roughly about $40 billion, I'm talking purely of international on BPM, the quality of the jobs that on an average we as an industry are doing kept going up. As I said, that was the BC area, before COVID area, and then now COVID hit us. So yeah, we are in a lot of trouble. There are a lot of issues. Offices are not open. Our customers' businesses severely impacted. The volume coming from the customer has dramatically reduced. The volume that is coming is critical. We can't get our employees to office to be able to service it. And 90% or even if we are conservative about it, 80% of our employees are working from home today. So while we talk about it and we talk of the technological challenges, etc., to my professor community that is on this call, I just want to dwell a little on this, on what this creates as an opportunity. The fact that in Delhi or Bangalore or Pune or Mumbai, where the office is, and there are, let's say, typically in an organization like mine, there would be 4,000 or 5,000 employees, out of which 70-80% are sitting in different parts of Delhi working from home, assuming they have an internet connection and assuming they have either a desktop or a laptop, or where we as a company have been able to provide them with a laptop to be able to work on it. They are productive. But think about it. Why sit in Delhi or a suburb in Delhi? Theoretically, he or she could be sitting at home in the small town or village where he came from. And he could be performing exactly the task if the internet was there at a decent speed that he or she gets in Delhi or in Mumbai or in Chennai or in Pune, and he or she had a laptop. And therefore, if you look at it, and I'm looking at the crystal ball to say, where will this go post-COVID? AD, after AC, after COVID, which way is the world going to emerge? There is a cost of employment to the company in services industry. I'm not talking of hotels or restaurants where you have to have face-to-face, but there are a lot of services that are provided remotely, either through working on papers or through calls or through a mix of that interaction. The cost of that employee is the cost of real estate where he or she is sitting, the size of the table and the per square foot that gets absorbed, the cost of air conditioning, the cost of running the cafeteria, the cost of keeping the place clean, the cost of transportation of the employee. 20% of the cost to the IT industry is transporting that employee from his present residence to his place of work, and particularly in the BPM industry where we work at night, there is no public transportation. If that employee was able to work from home, that cost will come down dramatically. But it will also bring out challenges. How do we train that employee? How do you monitor that employee that he or she is doing what he or she has been giving? How do you monitor the productivity of that employee? And as if those challenges were not bad enough, as per law, technically, only a lawyer, a chartered accountant, and a doctor can work from home. If you are none of these, you cannot work from home. And even if you are one of these, the electricity guys will start charging you the commercial rate of electricity. The taxes that you pay on the houses, the municipal taxes that you pay, are at a commercial rate and not at a domestic rate. And there are a host of complications that happen. Can you imagine a kid of a family who's working in the IT or the BPO industry, is getting a decent salary, maybe for the sake of argument, 25,000-30,000 rupees, decides to work from home and works whatever, 8-10 hours a day. There are other members of the family. The electricity bill is, let's say, 8,000 rupees a month. And suddenly it becomes 20,000 rupees a month because the rate is now commercial. I mean, some of those kids will get chucked out of home. So to make this a reality, there are regulatory aspects that have to happen. There are legal changes that have to happen. But the new world that will emerge will be very different. And as I address my professors, as I address the colleges and the universities, what I want to bring out is this is no more just about employment. Each one of them are like the Uber drivers, like the Ola drivers. They become entrepreneurs because they do not have to be an employee. In the world of tomorrow, they may be doing work on a piece rate basis. They may be doing work to say, if I handle one new card account application or new card origination or a mortgage origination, I will charge you 85 rupees. And I can do so many in a day, and therefore I can make that much money in a day. But I'm not an employee. I am a contractor. I'm an entrepreneur. But to be able to get the creative juices, the entrepreneurial juices flowing, that is what we have to plant. Because as they've also pointed out on the opportunity that, he took the example of Instagram pages. That is an entrepreneurial opportunity. Sitting home, wherever you may sit, you may be able to create the Instagram pages for a whole lot of people, and that can be a business opportunity. You can be doing mortgage applications, you can be doing insurance applications, you can be doing insurance customer servicing. It's the aspect, and where this will go, I don't know, but I am very excited about the result of that opportunity as to where it will take it. The new wave of digital that Ganesh spoke about is going to create opportunities. Unfortunately, if your target audience, The kids who are going to leave college right now and are looking for jobs are looking for traditional jobs. Unfortunately, in my humble opinion, and I don't want to be the bearer of bad news, but they are in for a shock. Those traditional jobs will not be there because the downturn will lead to a release. In 2008, and Uma, in your opening remarks, you asked me to speak about attrition. In 2008, we stopped losing people because there were not enough jobs. So the attrition rate dramatically reduced within the BPM industry. And therefore, our recruitment dramatically reduced because a large part of our recruitment was only to replace the people who were leaving us. So that creates an opportunity to say that if the new type of jobs are going to be created, the existing employees are going to be available, you have to architect a different role. Traditional jobs will not be available, there will be an oversupply. And in my estimation, that oversupply will continue at least 12 to 18 months from today. So with that, one can go on talking about what the opportunities are. There are also bad news. I decided you already have a lot of doses of bad news, so I would not focus on bringing out the downsides and the bad news. Happy to answer any questions as we go forward. Thank you very much. Uma, back to you.
Thank you so much, Raman. That was really fascinating to hear you speak about what the future roles are likely to be. And as always, you not only do crystal ball gazing, but you have looked at these as opportunities to reinvent yourself, reinvent the business. And that's really something that the youth who are coming out of colleges today and various professors who are part of the session today would be thinking about, and encouraging them to think about how they should think about their careers. So before I move back to Dev and Ganesh with one more round of questions, and thereafter we will pick up questions from the participants, I like to stay with you, Raman, and ask you about entrepreneurial opportunities. You have been a serial entrepreneur. You have been part of creating 4 successful initiatives. Each one has been more successful than the previous one. So what would be your advice, Raman, to the young people who are wanting to think about startups? Is this the right time to think about startups? Do you think if they were to come up with a good idea, even during COVID times, there will be venture capitalists or angel funds who would be willing to support them? Or how should they be thinking about startups in the current context?
So I wish the answer was a little simple to say yes, great opportunity, or no, today is not the time. But unfortunately, the answer is a little more complex. I think the opportunities AC after COVID are going to be mammoth. People staying home, social distancing, how they entertain themselves, how they eat, how they socialize, how they interact at work, which way the boss is. Ganesh used the example of the boss sitting in Chennai and employee sitting in Pune, or vice versa. Must be the boss in Pune if Ganesh was talking about it, right? But there is a new world that is going to emerge. But startups, and I meet a lot of startups. In the last 4-5 weeks, I would have interacted with at least 300 to 400 founders and entrepreneurs, some of which are companies in which I have invested, and some of which are other Indian Angel Network companies where I'm very active as an investor and as a co-founder. I am at pains to tell the people. There are people who come and tell me how much food they have distributed. Don't get me wrong. I am not against any food distribution, looking after the people. These are all great things. But we are not registered. Those startups are not registered as not-for-profit companies. They are registered as companies, and after a particular stage where you have a revenue and you have a cost and there is a surplus, a part of that surplus being utilized to do good to the society is a great thing. But where you are making losses hand over fist, to expect the investors to turn around and say, great, you are doing this good. Don't get me wrong, no investor will say don't do it. But what I'm warning those founders is, all such investors to whom you went and said, I'm going to do this, I'm going to spend 30 lakh of rupees doing free food, I'm going to spend 50 lakhs of rupees distributing this while I'm losing 1 crore per quarter in my business. I have told them that investors suffer from a disease called selective amnesia. When they sit down and discuss the details of the business with you, they will forget that they told you it is okay to do philanthropic work. Startups are very challenged with cash flow. In 400 startups that I did a survey, the maximum they had money as a runway to last without getting additional customer payments or additional investment was 12 months. And 12 months is not enough runway for a company to take off. So there are entrepreneurial opportunities. You have to figure out what is the revenue model and how you're going to make it, particularly if you're looking for investment that is looking for a multiplier. You could get into impact investing. You could be looking for CSR money or impact investment money. That is also there in the market that says, okay, if you're going to create a few jobs, or you're going to create clean water, or you're going to create education, we will fund you. But that is a minuscule amount of money compared to money that is following for profit. So you need a revenue model. You need to be able to show where you can take that business. Opportunities are immense. Creating revenue models is very challenging.
Okay. Thank you, Raman, for that very sound and very logical advice that you have provided. And I'm sure the TPOs who are present in this meeting today will be taking back this feedback for their students to think about the revenue model first before jumping into startup. Moving on to Dave, you spoke about thinking about jobs, thinking about careers very differently, Dave, and you gave some very interesting examples. So what you're saying is we should be seeking income and not job necessarily to begin with. And also one should be prepared to step out of one's comfort zone. So what would be your specific advice on the kind of skills and competencies that you would encourage our TPOs to develop amongst the students who are going to be pursuing careers very, very soon? Over to you, Dave.
Okay. First of all, I claim no expertise in this area, but, I'm like all of us, we are, swimming these choppy waters and trying to figure out if I've got the oar in the water, is it in my hand, and what do I think I actually am doing? So these are stuff that, you have to live with. And while doing all of these, so what we try and do is, because, we have got 150,000 people across the country. There are about, couple of millions of people who are dependent on these companies that we run. So we have to keep thinking, what are we going to do? What are we going to suggest to people? How can we tell them, just forget it. We are not going to give you any more orders for the next 8 months. You can do whatever you like. This is not the kind of advice we can give. So we got to think. So the same thing I'm doing with you, I'm thinking aloud. Okay, so please permit me that leeway to sort of give my suggestions as they come. And so some of these things that I've thought of. And for the TPOs, I presume TPO means training and placement officers, right?
Yeah, that's right.
That's right. Okay. So, like I said, and like I think all of us are saying, and in fact, all the panelists, including Raman, I think, reinforced it earlier, is that you really have to get out of your comfort zone. And you have to think that, okay, the world is somewhat changed. And like Raman said, it is post-COVID. And so post-COVID, the world will probably have lots of opportunities, but you have to go looking for it. They're not coming to your doorstep. What is coming to your doorstep is rejections, refusals. This is what you will see. And these objections should give you the opportunity to scale that wall and look beyond it, is my point. And therefore, I suggested what I suggested earlier. You know, the traditional jobs, which I call them in two kind of clusters. One is called the employee clustering businesses, where businesses require employees to sit together in large bunches, etc., and work. That and the customer clustering businesses, where they expect customers to cluster together, like events and sports, and travel together, or buses, or mass transport, etc. These are all going to see a bit of slowdown for the foreseeable future. So looking for jobs in these areas is not the best of options. When you're looking for jobs, you can look at areas like agriculture, FMCG, e-commerce, essential retail, labor mobilization. And labor mobilization, I'll talk to you in a little bit of detail. That is going to be a huge, huge opportunity and a challenge in the next year or so. And there are all kinds of remote services, including healthcare, etc. And you will see a lot of opportunities coming from US and Europe into India, because there is also this issue of wanting to disengage with China in terms of the totality of engagement that people have been having for the last several years. People want to break that up and sort of farm it out to other countries where maybe they will have much better sort of engagement and relationships going forward. And then, of course, there will be issues like areas in insurance, customer services, finance. These are the sectors which are likely to come back the fastest. That's not to say that manufacturing won't come back. Manufacturing will come back. And there is a lot of effort from the government now to sort of kickstart infrastructure. So, I can see, from our cement companies, there's a lot of cement movement that has started. We are, of course, having a lot of logistical issues about truck drivers. Trucks hai to truck drivers nahi hai, truck drivers hai to cleaner nahi hai. So those kind of issues we are still facing. But I think it will slowly come back. And kickstarting each of these businesses in terms of finding the right points where you have to give the pressure and the opportunity for the cycle to kickstart has to be creatively found by the government and the other agencies and the industry bodies, so that we give the impetus at the right point and it kicks off. So some of this effort has started. It will be slow. So you'll have to be aware of the fact that the automobile sector is going to be slow off the mark, whereas in infrastructure sector, especially in healthcare and public health and areas like that, which are technology oriented, public health, as well as general health areas, remote working, supporting healthcare sector, etc. You'll see a big jump. So this is kind of an overall perspective. If there are any questions on this, then I can take them.
Thank you very much, Dave. Yes, it's going to be very interesting to see how these opportunities are going to open up in many of the sectors that you mentioned. And then there are some sectors like maybe tourism, maybe travel, restaurants. We are going to see some amount of slowdown impact there, or large amount of slowdown impact. But going back to what Raman was mentioning a little while ago, maybe new models will emerge. So it's going to be really exciting time to watch out for. So while we're talking about opportunities in the industries, I want to turn to Dr. Natarajan before we open up to questions. And I would like to ask him as to what he thinks will be the requirement in the academic sector. Do you think the traditional engineering disciplines, do you think the traditional subjects like commerce or arts and so on, would those continue to be important to be taught? Would there be a requirement for rethinking the academic models, of being thinking about digital being an important component of every subject that is being taught in the colleges? So I see that there are quite a few, apart from TPOs, we have principals, vice principals, professors from various disciplines who are also part of today's meeting. So I would like Dr. Natarajan to talk about what kind of new models of learning, training, education that will become important in the coming days? And how should academic sector work with the industries to make it a win-win possibility in the coming years? Over to you, Dr. Natarajan.
It's a very interesting question. And very often, I think we in industry have been very unfairly criticizing academic sector for teaching obsolete stuff, if I may use the word. But I have a different point of view. Remember, about 8 years ago, I was in Harvard Business School, where I was speaking at the Centennial event. And somebody asked me, saying that, look, where did you learn the most? Was it in BIT Ranchi, where I did my engineering? Was it in NITI, where I did industrial engineering? IIT Bombay, where I did my PhD? Or Harvard, where I did my management? And my immediate answer was, it was in BIT Ranchi. Not because we taught, I learned mechanical engineering, not because it was the latest, it was contemporary, it was what industry wanted, but because that gave me a solid grounding on the top of which I could build all these other learning opportunities. So the reason I'm saying this is, the future is all about learning new things. And if academic institutions are able to build learnability in students, which really means give you an engineering approach to life, where you don't take anything for granted, you're able to appreciate the underpinning capability or the core behind any new technology, you'll be successful. So it doesn't matter whether you go into manufacturing, whether you go into robotics, whether you go into medicine, you go into engineering, or you come into the IT sector. If you've got a solid grounding in your academic institutions, I think that's what academic institutions should continue to do. If I may offer one suggestion, make sure you mix some liberal arts courses in your engineering disciplines, because as I mentioned earlier, and I think Raman also meant, the ability to think out of the box, being entrepreneurial, take up new challenges, as Dave said, and mix all this together will give you a success. So I have no quarrel with academic institutions. I think you're doing a great service to the nation by teaching the students what you teach. But please give them the appetite to keep learning, because that is the only way you will succeed in life.
Thank you very much for sharing those very wise thoughts. Let me now move to Mridula. Mridula, would you be able to pick some of the critical questions here? All questions are actually great, and we will try to respond to them. But because of paucity of time, maybe we could pick 2 or 3 questions quickly and share it with our panelists to answer.
Hi, Uma. Thank you for this opportunity. So there are a lot of questions, and some of them have been answered quite proactively by Dave as well as Dr. Raman Roy. But a couple of questions that I'll pick up. One from Professor Sandeep Patil, who is from International Institute of Information Technology, Pune. And his question is, which jobs can be vanishing and which will be newly added? So is there an additional perspective? And I know they've talked about agri-industry, and Raman also spoke about, so did Ganesh, but I'll just throw it open to the panel, because there are multiple questions on job opportunities post-COVID.
So Raman, would you like to take this question?
Yeah, I'm happy to give some perspective, and I'm sure Dev and Ganesh can add to that. See, the new digital aspect that Ganesh initiated his talk with, there is an incomplete understanding of what all digital means, because it is yet evolving as a methodology, as a process, as an end game. And in that digital world, using new technologies, technologies such as 3D printing, technologies such as blockchain, there are newer aspects that as yet have not been fully commercialized or integrated. But the need for people who understand that is huge. And again, while I, like Ganesh said, I have no quarrel with the academia, but some of these newer technologies, we are not training enough students in that. Nanotechnology, we are not training enough people to be in nanotechnology, because ultimately only 20-30% of the people remain in that specialized field. So within NASSCOM, about 3 years ago, when I was the chairman, we initiated a Future of Skills program. That what is a future of skills, where there are, and we identified 16 different skills that did not exist today, but which would be required in the world of tomorrow. And we created a platform, a capability to be able to train staff, to be able to imbibe those skills so they can be future ready. And those are just a sampling of 16. There are hundreds of opportunities that are sitting there that would require, and in the entertainment world, with a Netflix, with a Hotstar, with a Amazon Prime coming in, which way the people will sit at home and consume content, and what kind of jobs that will lead to. It is not about just streaming that content, how they will eat, what popcorn they'll have, what food they will have, how they'll socialize. I mean, whoever thought that you'd have a drink over a Zoom call? Every week I have at least 4 to 5 Zoom calls with my different friend circle. The only good thing is they're not drinking my whiskey. Each one is drinking their own whiskey, but we are having a drink with each other. So it's a new world that will create those new opportunities. Some will be known and people will come and follow and be able to duplicate it. Some with the entrepreneurial capabilities will find newer ways that as yet are unknown. And then they will fulfill that, and more people will come and fulfill those capabilities. Again, remember, this is not only domestic. Digital, the globe is like our city. So whether we are fulfilling those opportunities just for India or the globe, whether we are teaching maths to a student who's sitting in UK or US or Australia, or he's sitting in Chennai, Mumbai or Pune, doesn't matter. If you're doing it over the web and you have a good model to be able to do it, you will be successful.
Thank you, Raman. That is so true. You talked about so many new skills which are going to become relevant and important tomorrow. And I remember when I started working, my father was quite perplexed to hear about programming. He used to be part of All India Radio, and he had heard about programming as the traditional programs done for radio, Doordarshan, or such other broadcast. Then came along the programming jobs. So I'm sure in the next 5 years, we are going to see completely new types of jobs arising out of new skills and new demands of the industry.
Digital marketing,
so Mridula,
marketing will be something very new and very different in the times to come.
Indeed.
Because the behavior is going to change, and how you'll get to the share of mind of your target audience, it's going to be very interesting and exciting.
Indeed. Mridula, I think we have time for just 2 more questions, very short questions, one each for Ganesh and Dave.
Okay, there is one question on digital marketing and there's another question on manufacturing. So perhaps Ganesh and Dave both can take it. So the question on digital marketing is on how can digital marketing be used to target small scale companies as a middle person, and it's very difficult right now to target a crowd and pull new leads, etc. So how can we use the digital technology as efficiently as the likes of Amazon? That's one question.
Let me answer that.
Should I? Yeah.
It's the manufacturing question to Dave. See, digital marketing, and as Raman says, it's a real science because there's both inbound marketing and outbound marketing. And the way digital marketing is normally used is you create an interest, a pull kind of from your website or your presentation on the net. And maybe you do webinars, whatever. But the ability to harness a persona who comes in, that you could target a specific persona, the design engineers of, let's say, small scale companies in the US. And then you could actually design solutions for those personas. So in fact, if any of you are interested, look at a technology called HubSpot. It's just one example of how very targeted inbound marketing can be done. And just to conclude, I'd just say that what Raman said is so true. Because you're all worried about which jobs will disappear. Any job that can be replaced by automation will disappear. Whether it's robotics in manufacturing, whether it is ledger posting or check passing in banking, they'll disappear. So you have to keep looking at, I mentioned innovation right in the beginning. What can you do which actually gives you a much richer job content, where your value add is your intuition, your innovation, your experience, what they call cognitive skills, and not so much your repetitive skills. So if you keep that in mind, you can always choose abilities to make that happen for yourself. Yeah, go ahead, Mridula, just ask me.
Okay. The next question is on manufacturing, Dave. I'd invite you to answer this. So people are wondering if there would be greater boom in India on manufacturing, given the way China is the way it is, and there's a lot of speculation around that. So I'll not say more than that. Just leave it to you to answer that, Dave.
Go for it, Dave. Go for it.
The $1 million question.
Yeah, I think Dave has had a little bit of a challenge listening to this question. Dave,
Yeah,
are you able to hear now?
Yeah, now I hear.
So
Yeah,
I think the question was a classic India-China. I mean, because of problems and the perception, will India benefit?
Yes, in fact, I'll give you examples. It is actually benefiting, and I have had several chats with folks, and within our group as well as outside. There have been offers from companies in the US and Europe to find alternate sources of manufacturing in India. And I'll give you an example of a friend of mine who does textiles for automobiles, and he's one of the biggest suppliers. Phase 3 is the name, just so that you know what company it is. And he has got a proactive, unsolicited offer to make acoustic fabrics for a large company from the US. And they said that we want to find an alternate for China and look at whether you can do it and tell us in 15 days and we'll start working with.
Dave, your sound just disappeared. You went on mute, Dave.
You went on mute, Dave.
You can't hear me?
The challenges of technology.
Yeah, you're back without mute. No.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, now we can.
Can't hear anyone.
Okay. Looks like Dave is having some challenge with his audio, but I guess participants would have got a feel of what he was trying to say, that opportunity is very much here for the manufacturing industries, and already there are feelers, some of the companies in India beginning to receive from the US market. That's what Dave was trying to tell us.
You couldn't hear me at all?
Yeah, we lost you, Dave. If you can just conclude.
So, okay, fine. So, what did you hear? Then I'll please.
Yeah, you were mentioning about this opportunity of
your friend, and there's a lot of opportunity yet, and we were just concluding that. We heard most of what you said.
Okay, that's fine.
Yeah, you could just add one line.
So, therefore, I think I'm quite excited about this. I wasn't quite believing this when we heard it on the television and media and other people saying it. But actually, I'm seeing now, and we have got actually some feelers for specialty chemicals, etc. So I'm excited about the fact that there will be some attempt to replace Chinese suppliers with Indian ones. And having said that, I think one last line that I want to say for the training and placement officers and the institutions is, please open up the possibilities and the sort of creative thinking hat to try and reposition your offerings from your institute and your students towards organizations in terms of a creative project approach, as I had mentioned earlier. Try that. Don't try looking for jobs. Of course, you look for jobs, because I told you many sectors which will still be fine. And somebody asked about pharma. Of course, pharma will be good. So don't worry about that part. But if you find that you're still not getting enough response, change your tack. And there are ways to do that. And I've mentioned some of that. I'm sure you'll have many more thoughts in that direction.
So, Uma, before you end, if I may, just a couple of a minute.
Please.
I just want to prove the point that of what I think all three of us tried to bring out, to say that there is a lot yet that we have to know. Conventional logic said that after the lockdown, people will not rush to buy stuff in retail. But in China, when retail opened up, a new term came into being, AC, after COVID, of revenge spending. People went on a binge into retail. One particular high-end retail store had more than $5 million of sale in a day that they would typically do in a quarter. So there is a lot we have to learn of which way people will operate. I worked hard to pick out two things. May not be the best quotes of it, but as we are in learning, I picked up two quotes from Edward Deming. The Deming is the god of quality and who brought in Six Sigma and all those good things to this world. Because you, the professors, and you, the colleges who are on this call will go and tell the students that they have to learn. So I got two quotes that maybe some of you will use when it is challenging. W. Edwards Deming, he said, learning is not compulsory. And he went on to say, neither is survival. He also said, it is not necessary to change. Survival is not mandatory. However, if we want to survive the change that COVID brings, we have to go forward and adapt to that change so that not only can we survive, we can thrive. Thank you very much, Uma. Back to you.
Thank you very much, Raman. That was brilliantly put. Yes, change is absolutely essential, pivotal, if we really want to move forward as a society, if we have to survive and if we want to succeed. On that note, I'm just going to ask Dr. Natarajan to say any last one or two lines, and then we will conclude.
No, I think I'm done, and I think it was fascinating, and thank you very much for all the wonderful comments you're putting in the chat, all of you. Very gratifying to see the response. We are very happy to do this once a month and get different speakers to interact with all of you, so we can make it a monthly series from Global Talent Track. And if there are any other questions or anything that's really bothering you, do write to the organizers who wrote to you, and they will reach out to us and get inputs. But thank you very much, and thank you, Gdp, for hosting this.
Thank you very much, all the participants who have been involved in today's webinar. Thank you very much for the wonderful panelists. It has been an exciting session. I'm sure we will all go away with lots of things to think about, and we will be in touch with you to see in what way we can support you, support the students. And of course, this is the time for thinking about those exciting opportunities ahead and how we can encash upon those opportunities and prepare our students for tomorrow's world. Thank you very much.